I open the door, the bullet ricocheted off my window and go the opposite way. I go around the car, people shooting guns over my head. So it's gunfire left and right, left and right. I make one phone call, my club brothers pull up and my wife pulled up too. So you see a pack of hyenas in the corner and you see a little bitty girl that's only 4'11" in the front with the heart of a lion. And at that moment, I knew I had a backpack. At that moment, I knew I had a woman.
Welcome to Patched, where we look at the personal impact of life in outlaw motorcycle clubs. This episode, my co-host Justin Mooch, DeLoretto, and I sit down with Chappie, former member of a 1%er motorcycle club.
I think in life we're all gonna suffer. It don't matter what club you in. You're gonna have your good times and your bad times. You just gotta choose the club worth suffering for.
That's this episode of Patched.
Are you an active member? The kind that would be missed? Or are you just content that your name is on the list? Do you attend the meetings and mingle with the flock? Or do you just stay at home and criticize and knock? Do you take an active part to help the club along? Or are you satisfied to just belong? Do you push the cause along and make things really thick? Or leave the work to just a few and talk about the clique? Think this over, brother. You know right from wrong. Are you an active member? Or do you just belong?
Thanks to Hims for supporting Patched. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/patched. Hey, good to see you again, Jason.
Always good to see you, brother. Here's a question from one of our viewers. Tiny said that he had heard rumblings from California about what was going on in Tennessee. So he and other officers flew out to California to find out in person what the problem was. My question is, do 1% clubs have a central governing council that controls all chapters nationwide, or is it more localized? That's a good question. Every club's kind of got their own structure. I mean, as far as how they run things. So I can speak for the Hells Angels that there is a governing council, for the club. It's spread up on the two coasts so that it's not, there's no way that one governing council can handle the whole North America. So they kind of split the job. In the Hells Angels, everything is run on a democracy, right? So every man's got their own vote. So that gives everyone a voice, but it also can cause issues with things getting handled, on a timely manner. So that's what I got from my club. But Mooch, you want to go ahead and answer?
Yeah, the Mongols are more of a top-down structure. So, they're the national president, the national cabinet. Below that, we had regional representatives that answered directly back to Mother Chapter. And so they were the ones, like in this case, that if there was something happening in the Midwest, there would be a representative that oversaw the Midwest. That would be going back and forth between the members and Mother Chapter. And then below them were the chapter presidents. And so they were pretty linked between each region and then Mother Chapter. And so quite a bit more structured probably than some of the other clubs. But a lot of clubs do things differently.
Yeah, and remember, if a club's only sectioned to one state, it's a lot easier to figure out what's going on, right? So you either have a once a month meeting where everyone kind of gets together, or there's just a group of guys that get together to kind of figure out what's going on with the charters. But the larger you get, the more it has to be controlled. The smaller you get, of course, there has to be control, but it's obviously a lot easier to control a club that's got eight charters or less, right? So, and that's even considered a big club, I would say. If you got 8 charters, you're in a good spot. So I hope that helps with that question.
The next question we got is, what's the difference between chapters on the East Coast versus Midwest and West Coast? For me, I would say, at least from my experience, was, culturally, people are different in those regions. And so that's reflected within the chapters. Coming from a club that was primarily based out of Southern California, it was a pretty big difference seeing someone from Southern California than, say, St. Louis or Chicago, and then all the way to the East Coast. So I would just say that, the culture is reflected within those chapters. So they're slightly different. But as far as the rules, the protocols, and everything else, they're identical across the board, or at least they were for the Mongols. And the goal we had in the Mongols were, you could pick a member up in Florida and put him in Colorado, and he should be following the exact same rules and should be, on the same page as everybody else. So everyone tried to keep it pretty uniform.
I kind of describe it when I talk to people as like a franchise, right? Like McDonald's. So, and McDonald's is pretty much the same in every single state. They might have a little bit of differences on the menu, but that's pretty much how the clubs work, is that there's the overall rule book and there's the overall patch that has to look the same. But like Mooch said, when you go from the West Coast to the Midwest to the East Coast, there are going to be variances in what people do for work. What people like, what the weather conditions are, like how many months of the year can they ride. If you go to Alaska, you're talking about your bike's down for 5 months. You know, you go to Denver, Colorado, your bike might be down for 2 to 3 months because of the weather. And then if you get out to Florida, you can ride all year long, and same thing with California. So there's just different things that fall into place with all that stuff. Here's a comment we got. Jason, I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Your story is close to home. I grew up in the Valley. Well, I mean, that's a pretty wide open comment. I do appreciate that it my story is close to your story. And you can always hit me up on Instagram if you have personal questions you want to ask, and I'd love to answer those.
Yeah, I think that's kind of our goal here is that, our stories and our guest stories resonate with you guys and that you guys see similarities, because a lot of us, that's kind of our whole point here is a lot of us have a lot in common and a lot of us came from similar backgrounds or similar upbringings. So it's really cool seeing how those things overlap and what we all have in common.
On this episode, we interviewed Chappie, former member of a 1% motorcycle club.
Chappie first joined club life with his friends who were all youth ministers and took that energy with him moving forward when he ended up joining some other clubs.
His first position was a chaplain, became the youngest VP in the world. Let's get to the episode. Hi, Chappie. Chappie's known as the well-known 1%er from the Midwest. This is Jason and my co-host Mooch.
Hey, what's up, Chappie? Thanks for coming on today, man.
Sure, no problem.
So, first question we have actually is how did you get the nickname Chappie, or what does it mean?
Well, when I started prospecting for a 1% club many years ago, I was a youth minister during that time. But even with us being in the church, most people from my neighborhood that I prospected with, we all went to church together. We was in a Christian organization together, but a lot of us was in the streets as well, trying to get our life together. It was this biker dude with piercings and tattoos by the name of Lenny Barber. It took us all in and mentored us and taught us a lot. And he just so happened to be a biker that was around a lot of guys who became bikers later. So when I became a 1%er, before I even started, when I became a prospect, I was straightforward, like, look, I'm with the lifestyle. I like the hardcoreness. I like riding handlebar to handlebar. But here's where I stand. This is who I am. The president during that time was like, that's no problem. Hell, we'll name you chaplain. He was like, no, that's whack. We're going to call you Chappie. And then we started, going through our process, and I became Chappie, Outlaw Chappie 1%er.
How long have you had that nickname for?
Almost 9 to 10 years.
Okay, yeah, because I remember when I met you, obviously that was your nickname when we met, and like what Jason said, you're very well known in the 1%er scene in the Midwest and stuff, so, that name traveled a long way, so it's good to hear the backstory on it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just short for chaplain.
You also had another nickname, Church on the Move. Can you tell us how that came about and where that came from?
Yeah, so it was actually a 1%er named Guns from Alabama, 2 Guns from Alabama. He actually named me Church on the Move. I mean, nothing that I call myself. I didn't create none of this stuff by myself. Everything was gift to me based off of my personality. So I always preach, I still talk about God because I felt like God wasn't the way that people tried to portray him for me. God was righteous. He was light and darkness, so you will see dark for me and you'll see light for me. And I wasn't ashamed of my beliefs. And he was like, hey, you preaching and you ride your bike, you church on the move. And it just stuck ever since. So I give him homage for that.
Very cool. On one of our other episodes, we had talked to another 1%er that's from a Christian lifestyle. And we were kind of wondering how that balance works, like carrying your faith and your morals and values with you in an outlaw lifestyle. So how did you balance that or how did you kind of reconcile that?
Well, it all started for me when I was actually on a mission trip in Houston, Texas, at a spot called Hope House in the 5th Ward. I bumped into a biker from a Christian organization, so I instantly got online. During that time, I knew, growing up, I always knew I would join a motorcycle club. It was like a rites of passage. We all knew what we do. When we were kids in this neighborhood, we knew we were going to ride. I remember at one point in time, my whole neighborhood was riding motor scooters. I had the slowest one, but hey, I was riding, So it was something I knew I was going to do, but when I found out that there was bikers that were open about their faith, yet still traditional bikers, hardcore bikers, I was all for it. So I actually started off in a Christian motorcycle club. And in that process, I actually met a biker named, I don't know if you guys ever heard of him before, but his name is Lil Wolf 1%er. He was the national chaplain for Outlaws MC. And I believe we were in Kentucky or somewhere. I forgot what state we were in. We were having breakfast, and I listened to him talk, and it inspired me. In fact, he was the original reason why I wanted to become a chaplain in a 1% club. So for me, my brothers always held me like accountable. The gangster ones, the not so gangster ones, they always told me to walk in my truth. There'd be times where you have people who tried to persecute me for my faith or because I was open about it and they consider religion or light weakness. And then I have my gangster crazy brothers that was in the military most of their life that come up to me and be like, hey, lift your head up, boy, you a king, act like it. You know what I mean? David was a warrior and a righteous man. So yeah, I praise the Lord and ride to battle. And that's how they taught me. I think that the importance of brotherhood is iron sharpens iron, building your brother up. So where I was weak, they made me strong with their words and affirmations.
I was just going to ask you that. Like, so all those brothers that were saying, hey, don't listen to anybody. We need you to be who you are. That is a huge deal, right? Like, these guys need to have that feeling that, like, Chappie is going to be our guiding light, you know what I mean, when there are down times. Because, you know, in the motorcycle club, you know, we're going to funerals, where people are getting in motorcycle accidents, you know, people leave the club for this and that. People are dealing with sick people at home. Like, you need to have a positive person in your group, you know what I mean? And if you're strong enough to be that positive person, even when it's not popular, you have no idea what you were doing for those brothers that were with you, man. Just feeling that and like saying, man, I'm just glad Chappie's here. Like, I'm sure I could just imagine the smiles you were bringing to brothers' faces because you would show up and it'd be a little bit lighter in the room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you know, it goes both ways though. I will be a lie if I sit here and say that I had a perfect resume. Bro, it was times I backslid so much I ain't have no skin on my back. You dig what I'm saying? I lost myself a lot of times. I mean, if you're really living it at some point in time, you will stumble or lose your way. But my brothers and my sisters that was Christian and non-Christian helped me develop mentally as a man. So now that I'm broader, like I can sit down and talk to anybody from any faith because we all have more in common than we believe.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it was just me being strong all the time because sometimes property ups was the strongest thing I knew, keeping my arms up when I couldn't lift them.
Yeah, we weren't saying that you're a saint, but we're saying that you were that guiding light for when everyone's getting down or when everyone's hanging out, and you know it is what it is. But you are that person that could drag them out of that darkness. You know what I mean? Because you have that ability to speak, and you speak your mind, and you're probably educating yourself about what's going on with the Bible and your faith. And people feel good when that's being brought up, regardless of what you did in your past. They just know that you have it in your heart. You know what I mean? And it's a great thing mentally for guys to hear that, be around that. That's why the Christian biker movement is huge. I mean, so many people move to that because they're like, I get to ride a motorcycle, I get to hang out with guys who are like-minded, and we're also walking the line of faith. So I think it's great. You know, it's amazing that you did that.
Absolutely.
All right, Jason, one of the things I noticed in this episode with Chappie is he was talking about how he deals with day-to-day stress from club life and how he deals with his family. And it reminded me of the 7-day challenge that I started doing with Magic Mind. Have you tried yours out yet?
You know, you were talking so highly about it, I just jumped in and started. I'm on my second day. And I've already noticed a little bit more focus and a little bit more positivity in what I got going on.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee guy, so I like to drink this in the morning and get my day started. And in fact, my wife's seen how good it makes me feel that she's been drinking it, so I went through my 7-day trial pretty quick.
I'm actually going to try one right now. That really does taste good.
Yeah, you know what's really nice about it too is it's a mellow type of caffeine. I'll take it right before jiu-jitsu, and it gives me that extra energy that I need to kind of get through the hump and compete with the younger kids. But you know, I'm not all jittery and feel like I drank too much. So it's been a really smooth, helps keep me sharp as well so that I can keep training.
Yeah, you know, with me flying back and forth a lot, I'm interested to see how it does with jet lag. You know, and I'm going to say this is like, there's no like bad aftertaste. So like it tastes pretty good to drink. And actually, if these bottles were a little bit bigger, I'd probably be putting it over ice. I love the flavor.
Yeah, the team at Magic Mind really supports and likes Patched. So they hook Jason and I up. For all of our viewers, you guys can get it, try it out, and if you don't like it, you have 100 days to send back a refund, no questions asked. So even if you drink it, there's literally no risk.
That sounds great, Mooch. They were kind enough to send out a discount code for our audience. Get 50% off your first Magic Mind subscription using the code PATCH50.
Yeah, just go to www.magicmind.com/patched. Now let's get back to Chappie. Chappie, what made you want to transition from the Christian club to a 1%er club?
To be honest, it was race. I was actually one of the first black members or prospects ever to join an all-white club. Well, you know, it was like, you know, like in other clubs, like in white clubs, they'd take Mexicans or Latinos or Hispanics, you know, because I don't want to disrespect anybody because of lack of knowledge on my end. But they'd take other races, Asians, but they won't take African Americans, right? So I prospected for the Christian club for 2 years, and they were traditional. I still give them respect. Man, them dudes was hard body. Shout out to Disciple Rojo, you know, when he was in. Shout out to you. Shout out to Retro. It was a lot of guys that was super strong, but when it was time for me to get my colors, they never patched in a black person before. So the guys that I knew that I was getting blessings from was from the black set, where the club predominantly was on the white set. So that separation caused me to go with where I felt comfortable, you know, and it was guys around me during that time. I got recruited to go to my first club in 2015, but I didn't want to jump off the porch at that time. I wasn't ready, you know, but he told me what was going to happen, and surely enough, it did happen. And then I ended up going where I went. Life got the best of me.
And you've been around for a long time. You've been around a lot of different motorcycle clubs, and like you said, major 1%er clubs you spent time with. What do you see the big difference between, traditional 1%er clubs and the mixed race clubs and the black set? Like, how do they vary, or how are they different?
Well, it's broken down because you have some clubs on the black set that are traditional clubs as well. You have one club, they only take one race. They stick to the guns. They super traditional. They ride handlebar to handlebar. In fact, they get more miles than most people in the world. So I can't say that they're not traditional. I put them on the same level as multiple people. And it's other clubs in the black set that I put on that level too. Or like, for instance, if you're talking about racing motorcycle, then you have to look to California, where they had guys down there that were African-American having other people buy them because they couldn't beat them in races. So no matter what part of the world you look in, blacks have always been present, but there has always been a racial divide.
Do you see a lot of similarities between Outlaws, Mongols, Angels versus the mixed race sets and the black sets? I would imagine there's a lot of things that are in common, right?
Oh yeah, there's absolutely a lot of things in common. For instance, like, I'm a black guy, but one of my first Harleys that I rode was club style. I was riding T-bars. That's not really a black thing. Most blacks riding pullbacks. Right now I'm riding 20-inch Carlini apes on my handlebars. If you look at each bike, as me and you both know, it's based off a race. Every race has their own bike build. So when you look across these different clubs, you see the footprints of every race in every club. I don't matter who you are. You look at these cats with gold teeth and face tattoos. We've been living like that since we was 14 years old. You know what I mean? So who culture is who?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think, if you look at the history of it, like you said, there's so much overlap, and people don't know a lot of that stuff. But the influence from the different cultures that end up going into motorcycle clubs, regardless of what type of club it is, I think they all have influence from all the cultures, really.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Chappie, can you tell us about your marriage while you were in the club?
Man, my wife, she a ride or die. You know what I mean? Like, she done been through it all with me. Like, you want to get some juice, let's get juicy. So, I'm going to tell you why I married my wife. I left the weight room. I was on some Mooch stuff, trying to get my body right, training it, you know what I mean? Give me some jujitsu in. And I go to a gas station late at night. A guy sees me, a black guy, beard, facial tattoos. He gets nervous. Because I don't know what the situation is. Shoot at me while I'm pumping gas. Now I believe in God, because something said open the door. I open the door, the bullet ricocheted off my window and go the opposite way. I go around the car. People shooting guns over my head, so it's gunfire left and right, left and right. I make one phone call. All my club brothers pull up and my wife pulled up too. So you see a pack of hyenas in the corner, and you see a little bitty girl that's only 4'11" in the front with the heart of a lion.
You just messed with the wrong dude.
And at that moment, I knew I had a backpack. At that moment, I knew I had a woman with me, and I had to marry. I actually married my wife randomly during the pandemic at Harley Davidson, Gateway Harley Davidson, in fact. She been with me through the wars, through the hard times, the good times. She always rode on the back of my bike and never questioned. And when you come across something like that, that's once in a lifetime. So yeah, me and her, we patched for life.
You're still married?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Just had my first son last year, Outlaw Priest. He'll be riding pretty soon.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think people, because of motorcycle clubs, predominantly, obviously, a male-dominated world, I think it gets overlooked how important it is to have a solid partner, right? Like, if you're going to be a successful member, you need to have a supportive partner as far as, because you're active, you're gone, you're going out, there has to be levels of trust and support. But how did that play a role in your success in club life?
Oh man, my wife is the definition of seen and not heard. She not trying to be seen. She gonna sit back and watch my back. She reading your words, your lips all the way across the room, and you wouldn't even know it. She does her part when it comes to networking. She's big on energy. For your energy not right, I shake your hand as soon as you walk away. Stay away from her. She's my personal crystal. You know, she's my juju bag, to say the least. You know what I mean? When I'm with her, I'm gonna know if you're right or you're wrong. So I keep her close and I keep her safe.
How do you balance being active in like, outlaw club life and then being a family member and a father and a husband? Like how did that balance transition for you, or how's that worked out?
Well, it was pretty weird actually. When I met my wife at a party with the club that I joined at first, and they were actually DJing the party and everything. We was all sitting on the stage together, literally, when I met my wife. And 2 months later, I started prospecting for a dominant club. And she's been with me on the back of my bike since I started prospecting. So she got as much time and a lifestyle as me. It's just as important to her as it is to me. Like, I'll be real, with some of my decisions of joining clubs, that was based off of the property ofs I was seeing. Some of them are legends too. But you know, a lot of people run away from the title. You hear the title and you think it's a bad thing or it's derogatory, but it's like, no, they presidential. Some of them you can tell that they were around men that were really teaching them and molding them to be jewels, you know, that could have perhaps been diamonds in the rough, you know. So it always worked hand in hand with me. It's a lifestyle, not a part-time job. You 1% 24/7, 365.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick on just based on what I've listened to so far, Chappie, like it sounds like you had a pretty good childhood, right? Yes or no? Or I mean,
horrible childhood, bro. I should have been smoked myself.
Okay.
But
Okay, so you sounded pretty positive about your childhood, is what I'm saying. Like, as far as like you guys were riding around the neighborhood, then you came to club life. You found this great woman. Like you were in the club. You were able to keep yourself. You didn't have to change to fit in with anybody. Like from a lot of the people that we've talked to, that's like a key thing, I think, is just that like sticking to yourself, you know, being who you are. All that stuff plays into that whole, like, how the club affected you, right? And were you strong enough to get out of the club, be the same person you were before you got into the club, right? And that's like what Mooch and I are really trying to do with this whole thing, is reaching out to brothers to show them that there is positives you can go into the club with, you can find in the club, and you can come out of them with, to live your life and to move forward and to find different groups of people and, you know, all the stuff that we need to interact with people on a daily basis and still be sane and, you know, and still enjoy our lives and stuff like that, even though we did this thing that, you know, most people just dream about. So just like I said, from me listening to what you're saying, I just want to be around you because I feel like you're so positive. And I think that's just like, it's also something that can be very much different. Mooch, you'll probably attest to this. Like we've been around a lot of brothers in our lives, and you don't always hear these positive stories. You know, you don't hear positivity out of guys who left the club when they were in the club. You know, a lot of guys are they're down about a lot of things. So I just want to tell you, like, it just sounds really good from my end just to hear your attitude and your perception on life. You know, and I think it's great for all of our listeners to hear that.
I appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. A lot of me and my old brothers and my new brothers, if we still conversing, we've been talking about like, is the cup half empty or half full? You know, for some of us grew up in this club life. Like Mooch, it's funny, I was watching Mooch before I knew anything about. I mean, it's kind of hard not to know him, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And if you're in the Midwest, you don't know me or some of my friends because we did it at such a young age. So it's kind of hard to, you know. But we could transition. Yeah,
for sure.
One thing I always respected when I'd see you around a lot, Chappie, is that, you know, you were in an all-black 1%er club, but then you moved and you would hang out with this other predominant 1%er club, and you'd be at this other 1%er club's party, and like you seem to have good relationships with all the clubs in the community. What about you made it that you were able to do that?
Well, that goes into the church on the move. I look at clubhouses like temples, right? And each club has a different mascot, a different bylaw, like a Bible. It's all the same thing. You can learn and pull stuff from everybody, right? And you can give to everybody. What's the purpose of us riding scooters if we don't fellowship, right? What's the purpose of you having something unique, raw, or different if I never get to see it, nor you? I think the whole essence of the biker experience is coming together and learning from different tribes. I mean, like, for instance, I'll break it down. If I want to learn anything about racing a motorcycle, I know I need to get on my bike, ride 4 hours to Arkansas, and Sheep will show me how to ride a bike because he races a bike like no other. You know, if I really want to learn about, like, just coolness, what's cool, what's not cool, I got to hit a Mooch. Hey, Mooch, if I pull up like this, is that cool or not cool? Not cool, you know? You can learn something from everybody, you know, so that's why I always wanted the fellowship, because I find beauty in everybody, which is why I create no enemies for myself.
That's really well said. Really well said. So Chappie, we've been talking about you and your role as a chaplain in the motorcycle clubs. Can you tell us how that led from you being a chaplain in your club to being in a national club and the position you took when you entered that club?
Well, I started off as a chaplain, right? And I think that a part of that was like the OGs allowing me to be myself and bumping me up to be like, nah, it's cool to be you. We're going to stand behind you. They told me, whatever you do, just do it for us. You know what I mean? And in fact, when I first started off, they had me over all our support clubs too. So I was like, making sure our support clubs were coming to meetings and stuff like that. Needless to say, after that, I ended up bumping up to being VP 2 months later. I became like 2 to 3 months later. I can't remember the times, but the following year, the next elections, I became VP. And, I'm not really big on positions. I had a lot of big positions. Like VP, I've been a founding president before. I prospected for the Nomads for a long time. But, the roles really don't define you. It's the passion of the club. So the way I look at it, everybody at the table is the president. No man is bigger than the next. No big eyes or little you. So with my leadership, I say the only reason why I even had my leadership so long is because I had good brothers and good mentors that taught me the game and helped me when I made mistakes. Because I made a lot of mistakes as a VP, a president, or whatever you want to call it. Because nomads don't prospect, but even being around them, I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot as well. So I guess it was just favor of God's will. I don't know. I just thank him and keep on riding.
Patch merchandise is available at automotoentertainment.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mooch. A lot of you have been asking where to get an autographed copy of my book, and the only place you're going to be able to get it is here at the automotoentertainment.com website. The link's down below. We'll have paperback and hardback, so click the link, check it out, and get your signed copy today.
That's great, Mooch. A lot of people have been asking me about that. It's a great read, and you guys got to check it out.
Hearing your story and stuff, you started out in a Christian club, then you went to another club, and then eventually ended up in a different club. And I know people that don't know much about club life think that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But we all know, living that lifestyle, that it's pretty common to start somewhere and kind of work your way up, so to speak. Yeah. So how did that process work for you, or what were your takeaway from how that worked?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. So like when I was in the Christian club, being a minority in the club, I faced a lot of racism that I never faced before in my life. I mean, since I was younger, I always hung out with a lot of people, carried myself a certain way, so I never really had problems. And I was talented. I was around other races. So me being around other races do nothing, it doesn't make me uncomfortable. A lot of my fraternity brothers don't look like me, So it was quite easy. But for other people in the culture, it was quite hard. And I got a line in me, man. I just won't, even Christian or not, I will not tolerate you to treat me any kind of way. And the people that inspired me the most is where I went, Man, I would see these dudes all the time. I just flat out I want to get a shout out to my boy Cowboy 82. His was on Earn the Movement. So mine is Church on the Move. His is on Earn the Movement, right? Everything you see Chappie do, Chappie got it from Cowboy. Cowboy did it first. I'm the product of the OGs. Nothing, and I think that's every good student had a good teacher. Every good leader was once a great follower, So I went where I seen the guys actually riding bikes. Every time I seen them, they got their bikes, they dirty. Where you coming from? I'm coming from Atlanta. I'm coming from Alabama. This every week, putting motor work into their bikes, the way they carry themselves. I just had to do it, I never once quit my club. It was a misunderstanding, and because I have love for where I was at and where I went, I choose not to speak bad about either, because life is life, and it was a spiritual journey, so I accept it, but I won't forget where I came from, nor the people who made me be who I am. So yeah, I went to that club, and I had a long streak, and I still love people over there. Shout out to Dirty Red, NOD. It's a lot of people, Half Blood. Shout out to a lot of people, Pop Off. I mean, I can keep going on, Roll Out, Crossroad. There's so many people over there that they're still family to me, so it was never beef. I just wanted to continue my biker experience in a place that my people can grow up together and it just be cool. And I'll just leave it with that. But Never had issues with anyone. Always had positive relationships. You don't hear any drama dealing with Outlaw Chappie 1%.
With all the, all the time you spend in club life and all around that stuff, what kind of motivated you to take a step back or take a break or step away?
Man, to be honest, the streets will teach you a lot, man. Heartbreak. To be honest, heartbreak. I go to counseling now. And when we first started, he said, "What's up with the incense?" I'm trying to woosah. You know what I mean? I got PTSD. You help me. You know what I mean? Heartbreak will make you chill because you go from one place of realizing like, dang, this person might have did something to me that I don't like. So I'm gonna go with somebody familiar that I know. And then the person you familiar with do you the exact same way. Then it make you confused like, dang. I think in life we're all gonna suffer. It don't matter what club you in. You're gonna have your good times and your bad times. You just gotta choose the club worth suffering for,
That's Absolutely. A great way to put that. Great way to put that.
The realization of that, it made me just freeze and just I had to think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and that's it's good that you're talking to somebody about it because, like we said, there's a lot of brothers out there that don't think they can talk to anybody and they don't have anybody to reach out to, and you can't talk to your kids about this stuff. You can't talk to your neighbors. They can't assimilate, right? This is a very tough thing to be a part of. It takes a lot to reach out and admit that you need to have somebody to voice what's going on inside of you. So I really think that's great. Maybe like on a lighter note, since we went over all this heavy stuff. Favorite time of day, favorite time of year to be on your bike, favorite location that you guys have ridden to, your own personal like me time, to the reset button when you're on a motorcycle.
Well, I don't believe in a riding season and I don't believe in trailers. I ride.
Okay, good.
Anytime it's slab 30, it's time to go. You know what I mean? For us, we ride for, just to have a clear mind, the quality of thought, to get away from the real world, because if you truly are outlaw, if you truly are 1%, some of your screws loose. And last time I checked, it ain't no motorcycles outside the counseling unless it's Chappie. So
exactly.
Might be my office. You never know. But
yeah.
I book an appointment.
No, that's good. That's a lot of what all the brothers that have been on the podcast have said is like, just getting on that bike, regardless if you're going to ride, 30 minutes in the rain or a freezing weather or a super hot heat, it's just still something that like just gives you that moment to say, okay, good, I can take a deep breath. This is where I feel comfortable. This is where I'm getting, I'm not hearing all the voices going on in my head. I'm not dealing with all the struggles that are going on back home. I've got a chance to actually take a deep breath here. And
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate, you sharing that. And yes, I don't believe in trailers either.
One thing that could help some of our listeners too is, coming from this, again, male-dominated, tough guy world, right? You decided to seek counseling. So what was that process like? Like, when were you like, hey, this isn't a weakness and this is going to be helpful for me? Like, how did that process work for you?
When I realized I'm crazy, like, when I stepped away, I was really like stepping away on leave, And it's just like when life just keep happening, I lost my uncle. My mom was on life support last year. I mean, it was just, and then I became a father.
That's a lot.
With no friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going through that whole process alone, it just make you realize like, okay, I have to figure out what's going on here. And what I realize is, as a man, when you know that it's a problem, it's your responsibility to fix it, or you are a part of the problem.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, bro.
I feel like there's a lot of people from our lifestyle that could definitely benefit from stuff like that, right? Because like Jason was saying earlier, it's a type of lifestyle where it's really hard to talk to others about it, right? Unless this is the cool thing about this show is we have so much in common, we can talk about it, right? But people have to know that's out there. You have to know that we have these people we could talk to. And if you don't, like you said, you're stuck just with it on your own, and it's not going to get better. So I think that's a really good message for people, especially whether you're active in the club or you've left club life. But having somebody to talk to, I think, is going to be really huge.
And like you said, like those triggers, right? Like your mom was in the hospital, you're dealing with someone who died, you're just about to have a new kid. It's like, yeah, there isn't a manual for any of that stuff. There's nowhere to look. You can't look on the YouTube and figure out how to live your life based on some directions about how to raise a child. That's all real that you have to deal with. And it's like, that can be a ton on your shoulders, on top of work-life balance, on top of trying to keep a marriage safe, insane, and, keep the lights on. And then also you're trying to find time for yourself so you can get out and get on that bike to take a deep breath. And it's like, if you miss a couple of those times, it starts to add up and add up and add up. And we all know what happens if it adds up too much, right? We blow. So it's like, you need that stuff. And like Mooch said, it's like, it takes a lot to admit that you went and sought out someone to talk to, but like, this is exactly why we're doing this, because we want people to say that they've sought that out, it's helped, it's worked, and that they would keep going, so I really commend you for talking about that today. It's awesome.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Chappie, one I was saying that I admired is, you're always upbeat and positive, and you've really left a mark on this world. And we talked about once you leave and transition out of club life, there's a lot that goes on with it, right? It's really difficult. What kind of advice would you give to people, as a chaplain and as a one percenter? What kind of advice would you give to people that are leaving club life and how to like stay positive and move forward?
I think you got to look within. I think that you have to reverse what you went through. Often we join clubs because we're looking for something. We're looking for a place to belong. I think that a lot of people don't be real with themselves about why they join clubs. I was always taught that people join clubs for 3 reasons: girls, politics, or to look tough because they wasn't tough in a previous lifestyle, right? I would say that once you begin to identify the real reason why you joined, and if it aligned with who you want to be or where you want to go, then you have no choice but to look at yourself and identify what needs to change, So it's just a thing of healing that inner kid, because we all have it. When we act out, they say you're acting like a child. Why is that? Because that inner kid wants what it wants because it probably didn't get it. So it's your job to give it to them.
Leaving club life, obviously we were active members. We're gone all the time. Like you said, you're 1% or 24/7. So you're on your bike, you're out of town. How do you kind of replace that vibe when you're not in the club anymore? How do you replace that energy, or what do you replace it with?
The love I have for my brothers is still doing it on both sides. I mean, I can't do it the way I did it now. Like I was watching an interview you did, and you were saying how you still miss going to clubhouses. And, I mean, the same is here. If you are what you say you are, then that's going to always be a part of you. It'll never leave. You just have to control it. All I can do is ride when I can ride and explore where I can explore. That's all you can do.
Do you ever see yourself, club or no club, you ever see yourself not riding motorcycles?
No. Yeah,
I didn't think so.
I'd rather not be around, Club, like the club and stuff is cool, but what's even cool is when a bunch of bikers join the club. The thing is, some people become bikers after they join the club instead of being a biker first. Before I joined the club, when I was hanging out with the OGs, I would sleep on my bike outside the club from riding out of town, because that's really my getaway. So club or no club, I will always cross state lines, but it's cool when you can do it with brothers you trust.
Absolutely. And that's, one of the things we talked about our last guest with is even when you leave club life, there's so much of us that have so much in common that you can still find camaraderie and ride motorcycles with like-minded people, patch or no patch. And I think like for guys like me that have left club life, that's helped me a ton, is still having good, close friends that I could ride motorcycles with and cross state lines with.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you got to have something to look forward to, You have to have that. And it's not easy to go out and ride by yourself. We all do it, right? But when you have that group of guys that you say, like, I plan a trip every year, and the minute we leave that trip, we're planning the next one and having that to look forward to, right? And it's like we go somewhere around the United States every year, and it's like, if I didn't have that, I don't know, I would probably be a little bit lost, you know what I mean? So it's like, I definitely would be searching another group that would be looking to do that. I'm always looking to expand our group that we have because it just makes it more fun when you're with the right like-minded group, like you said.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. It's a great mental reset. It's just all positive.
Yeah.
We love it. I mean, this is why we do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the looks we get from people on the highway, you can't replace that. People are like, wait a second, you guys just rode from where? It's like, people can't fathom that stuff. They're like, wait, you rode from California? We're in freaking Oklahoma. On a motorcycle? Yeah, no trailer? Yeah, it's just, people can't fathom that stuff, and I think that's probably half the battle as to why it's so fun to get out there on the road. It's just meeting new people and them being shocked when they hear how far you've ridden, Yeah. Even if it's for a day ride, a few hundred miles, people don't go a couple hundred miles to go to a spot to turn around and go back home. That's what we do. Like I've always said, there's something special about what we did in the clubs, regardless of what club you were in. You did the thing that most people wish they could even attempt. All the guys out there, they need to remember that and take that with them in their everyday lives. Like, I did something most people would never attempt, and you got to be happy with that. You got to start there. Like you said, Chappie, you got to find the positive, and you got to add on top of that and keep rolling forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, appreciate your time, man. Really good talk.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, and then Chappie, before we wrap up, do you want anything that you're working on, or projects, or shout outs, or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, you guys can actually follow me on IG under Outlaw Chappie, and you can follow me on YouTube under Outlaw Chappie as well. Recently, I just dropped a project, but I keep it a surprise. If you go to my page, you'll find out. Link in the bio.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on with us today, man. Really appreciate it, and it's been really cool so that our guests can see other perspectives and views from other clubs. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Thanks for tuning in, and just another reminder about Magic Mind. It's so great.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue my 7 days.
It's really worthwhile to give a try. There's no risk, and they even gave us that code to use.
Get 50% off your first Magic Mind subscription using the code PATCHED50 at www.magicmind.com/patched. This portion of the podcast is brought to you by First Bank.
Thanks, First Bank.
Thank you, Chappie, and thanks, Mooch. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below, and never miss an episode. Find us on Instagram at automoto.ent, at OG_Mooch, at Jason_Logan81, and for more info and episodes, go to automotoentertainment.com. Thank you for tuning in. See you on the next episode of Patch. Patch merchandise is available at automotoentertainment.com. The Patch podcast series is brought to you by Oak and Iron, Craft Cocktail Bar in Thousand Oaks, California, by Outdoor Creations, serving the Southern California and Nashville areas.